Who is Lesley Hazleton? I have no way to answer that question. It's too complicated. It's too complex. It would take me 70 years to answer it because it took 70 years to become it. And it's only at this very moment. I will be somebody different in an hour from now, and a year from now, and 10 years from now. So trying to pin down exactly who I am right now. Two people 70 odd years ago happened to meet, and they happened to fall in love. And if they hadn't met, and if they hadn't fallen in love, if my father had decided to study law instead of medicine, or if my mother had gone to the hairdressers that day instead of going somewhere else, or any of a thousand and million and infinite number of chances. But the one that did happen was that these two Hi, Alicia.
Hi.
Hey. Woo. Beautiful red.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Come on in. Come into my shack. Isn't
Thank
this
you for
gorgeous?
it.
And look, you brought the sunshine with you. The longest, wettest winter on record in Seattle. That's
Really?
long and wet. Yes.
This year?
Uh-huh. Only just stopped raining.
Ah, glorious weather indeed.
Yeah. And this is my olive tree. So this is my connection to the Middle East. My olive tree.
And you brought that home to be reminded of it.
Actually, I got it here. I found it. It was only about this high and had 4 tiny little olives on it. And it was outside a supermarket on top of Queen Anne Hill, right up the supermarket I usually go to. And now it's about 20 years old, which is a baby for an olive tree.
And do you want to be reminded of the Middle East?
Yeah, not reminded, just have the link. You know, once the Middle East gets inside you, it never actually gets outside you.
Is that
It
really
stays with
so?
you. Yeah. I think anyone who's lived there for any, I lived there for 13 years. And then I was back and forth another 7 years. And it just sort of works its way really deep inside you and never lets go. So
That's fascinating.
I mean, this is why I love all the work I've been doing. I mean, what I've been doing is getting up in the morning here in 21st century Seattle, looking out at this lake, you know, and the mist and the cormorants and the water. And I sit down at my desk and I'm in 9th century BC, Middle East, 1st century Middle East, 7th century Middle East. And that's what I have here. I'm lucky, immensely lucky.
So you
But come on,
find...
I'll make you some coffee.
Oh,
Some coffee?
thank you, yeah.
Yeah. Or tea.
Tea's also good.
Tea. You got it. You got it. You should sit there at the desk. Isn't that great? Isn't that a wonderful place to work?
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to work at, yeah.
You know, and since a lot of writing work, very intensive writing work is done staring out of the window, it's a good window to stare out of. I've been living here 25 years. You know, once I got out of England, which was never my choice to start with. So I was 13 years in Jerusalem, and then 13 years in New York. And when I moved here, I thought, okay, it'll be 13 years in Seattle, and who knows where next, right? And here I am, it's been 25 years, not only on the same continent, and not only in the same city, but in the same house. It's kind of like, I stopped wondering.
Did you?
Apparently, I just feel I don't have no desire to move. That restlessness that I used to have seems to have dissipated. It's very strange. It's good for the writing.
And that happened here, that the restlessness...
I don't know,
has
maybe
left
it's the
you.
effect of the water. It sort of, you know, smooths things out. It's different.
Why did you leave England?
I was just never very good at being English. It's not that I'm good at being American. I mean, I am American, you know, legally and so on, but I have this sort of European sensibility, but or Middle Eastern sensibility. They're a mix of sensibilities. I'm all over, you know, but definitely not an American one. So there's still that outsiderness which I like, but in England, it wasn't just an element of outsiderness. I felt so outside the whole of England, you know, as I was growing up. Like, what am I doing in this place?
Really? So from the moment you were a little girl, you started to feel that you don't belong in
Oh,
England?
yeah. Well, first of all, you know, if you're Jewish in England, you don't belong. Anti-Semitism in England is very subtle. But also, I was the only Jew in a convent school run by nuns, which gave me a great education intellectually, and a very interesting one existentially, because I was the outsider. I mean, it was an education in being an outsider. And I don't think there's any better education for a writer. I really don't. Hey, what happened to the other ones? Oh. Yeah, I reckoned it was. I think somebody else must be feeding him, her, them. It's so great to have you. Jerusalem was wonderful to me. I got there really shy, you know, nice young English girl, and I became who I am there, basically. Yeah, I became a journalist. I worked for, you know, Time magazine and so on. And I did a second degree in psychology, and I worked as a psychologist at the same time. And I stayed. I stayed for 13 years. And then there was a war, and wars kind of bind you to a place in a very, very strange way.
What do you mean?
Okay, the nasty truth about war is that war is exciting. It makes you feel more alive because you're on the brink of death. It is, it's a very ugly truth, but it is so. When you are under fire, you never feel so much alive. And it becomes a kind of, and I saw this especially with journalists, especially with foreign journalists, it becomes a kind of addiction. You need that adrenaline, you need that feed, you need that, it just becomes part of daily life. This is a part of the world where every hour on the hour, everything stops and everybody listens to the news, right? But it's this constant adrenaline, and it's toxic, it gets deep inside you, and it's a place that breaks your heart. It's a place that one poet described it as my vampire land. It's a place that eats you from the inside, one way or the other. And especially as a Jew, it is so painful to see a government that represents itself as Jewish, that claims to speak for Jews, acting in such a way that is the antithesis of everything I think of as Jewish. It's the antithesis of all those values. It is just kind of unbearably ugly, which is why I've been back less and less.
And what are the real values of being Jewish?
I would call them liberal values. The old golden rule, you know, do unto others in Christianity. And a sense that it matters. It matters what you think, and it matters what you do. how you behave, how you treat others, how you interact with others, that this is about more than just me, you know, that you are not the center of the world, that you're part of a world that is interdependent, that is part of a whole ecosystem, as it were, of being. In Yiddish, there's a word mensch. In fact, one of the first blog posts I wrote was on menschiness, what it means to be a mensch. And what it means to be a mensch is far more than to be a good person. There's humor in there, and there's warmth in there, and there's passion in there. There's involvement in there. There's social and political and cultural commitment in there. There's a love for life in there, for being alive, and a wonder at it too, and never taking it for granted. And all these, to me, I don't know why these are Jewish, they're universal. And basically, I guess, you know, when I say Jewish, I do mean universal. They were the basic qualities of any religion, but have been lost in the mires created by, you know, the old men with long beards and big hats, you know, who sort of took control and tried to define what we all should or should not do and set up their own rules and regulations. I actually avoid talking about the Middle East as much as I can, especially about Israel, because I can feel the tears of what's happened. I can feel the this deep sadness.
But why did you leave?
Because I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't stand writing about it anymore. I just had to get away. I didn't know I was leaving for good. I left for, you know, a year or two, but I could see where it was going. I'd been reporting on where it was going, actually earlier than just about anyone else. I could see the incipient fascism, and it's a word I used earlier than anyone else and was very, very strongly attacked for. And it is so painful for me to say that as a Jew, to even use that word about other Jews. It's so painful now when I go back. My dearest friends in the world are there. The people who know me best in the world are there, but many other friends have left or have died or been killed. You know, I'd say I despair of any kind of resolution there, but, you know, to despair is to give up, and I refuse to give up. When I say I can't see it happening, I can't see peace, I can't see a positive future, I can't see how Israelis and Palestinians could possibly just live side by side, I remember that what I'm saying is simply that I can't see. What seems impossible to me and to many other people is not necessarily impossible, but if we keep insisting, if we give in to that feeling that it's impossible, then we will make it so.
No.
So, however irrational it seems, we have to hold on to possibility. It sounds terribly idealistic that way. It sounds almost naive, but it sounds romantic, but you know, just staring up through the leaves at the sky right now, that's not such a bad thing. If someone calls me naive and romantic, I will take that as a compliment. Let's not, you know, give up this cynicism, which is just, you know, it seems to me that every cynic is at heart a failed romantic or disappointed romantic. You know, has been a romantic and has been so deeply disappointed, so deeply disillusioned that he or she then becomes a cynic. And I think scratch any cynic and that's what you'll find is a wounded romantic.
That's so nicely said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to go cry.
Or we can stare at the leaves.
Laugh or cry, you know, so if you have the option
Yeah.
between the two, then laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, though sometimes you do need to cry. Marina out here, so nobody quite realizes that there's houseboats back there. And this is our swimming pool in the summer. 2 mile long by half-mile wide swimming pool, 40 feet deep, clear water. And to your left there, you
Yeah.
can't see it too well here, but the end of the next dock over is the Sleepless in Seattle houseboat.
Ah.
So that film, they were making that film when I moved here in 1992. And it's still like this major tourist attraction, right? Everybody's gonna come and see the Sleepless in Seattle houseboat, which is like a palace compared to mine. It's huge. I much prefer mine.
Why do you love the water so much?
I don't know. I always thought I was a desert person, you know, 13 years in Jerusalem. A year in the Sinai, just spent wandering the Sinai desert. So I always thought I was a desert rat. But I guess I'm just a rat. It's sort of like, it really does seem to just, it doesn't smooth off my sharp edges, because I really don't want my sharp edges smoothed off, you know, but it smooths just the tip of them, just a little bit, you know. Just enough to make me, I think I'm a nicer person living on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did America change a lot since Trump got president?
We don't really feel it so much in Seattle, because Seattle's like this deep blue conglomeration right at the edge of the continent. It's like at a different angle to the United States. Seattle is one of the centers of the resistance.
And why do you think Trump won?
Well, that's the ugly American side, isn't it? I mean, it's the usual reasons. It's the same reason that Marine Le Pen got 1/3 of the votes in France. It's the same reason that the Brits, majority of Brits voted for Brexit. It's, but here, it's the most powerful political office in the world. One reason that Trump got elected is that so many younger people did not vote. Because, you see, they were too pure to vote. Not that they wanted to vote for Trump, but they couldn't bring themselves to vote for Hillary because she was compromised. You know, if you don't vote, basically, in effect, it's a vote for Trump or Le Pen or whoever. With short-term interests and your own self-regard, and basically it's a matter of self-regard. How can I, so ideologically pure, possibly betray my principles by voting for someone whom I don't 100% support, you know? I'm sorry, this is sheer egotism or anarchism, and it's incredibly destructive for society as a whole. It's terrifying. I mean, the man is, I think emotionally unstable is the very polite term for it. The mildest psychiatric term is narcissistic personality disorder. But I'd love to know what drugs he's on, what meds he's on, or off. God, it's appalling.
And are you worried now about the future of America?
Yes, very worried. And the thing with the resistance, at the moment, it's in high gear, and everybody's realizing, you know, that you can't just sit back anymore, and you can't leave it to others anymore. You have to organize, you have to get out there, you have to stand up, you have to speak out, but you've got to keep doing it for 4 years. So this is what concerns me. How do we keep it up? And at the same time, how do we get on with our lives? Because if you pay attention to every single outrage committed by this regime in Washington, D.C., and regime is the only word I can think of it, not my president, not my government, right? So how do my friends, my politically committed activist friends, how do we survive all this personally? How do we retain the rest of our lives without getting eaten up by this outrage? And outrage will do that. It will eat you up from the inside, which is why it's not sustainable. We have to find something more productive than outrage, which is organized action. Bit late.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. KXL has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. KXL has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. KXL has got to go.
Yes.
There's no banking when you're dead. Can't drink oil, can't drink lead. There's no banking when you're dead. Can't drink oil, can't drink lead. There's no banking when you're dead. Rise up, get down.
Resistance.
There's revolution in this town. Rise up. Get down! There's revolution in this town, rise up! Get down! There's revolution in this town, rise up! Get down!
There's revolution in this town, rise up!
It's
Get
red!
down! There's revolution in this town, rise up! Get down! There's revolution in this town, yay!
None shall pass! Coal or gas! None shall pass!
No matter what damage it causes to people, to land, to the future, profit is king.
That's the only thing
Trump
that
is king.
counts.
That's the only thing that counts. Profit is king, Trump is king.
You guys can go on the other side of the line, please.
Sorry, I get bitter when I see. This is part of the problem. I feel myself getting bitter. I feel my face tightening when I talk about all this stuff because it's so much to deal with. And meanwhile, we fight, we resist. I'm writing to a lovely friend who lives in Japan. And this is weird. There's a honking big camera about 2 feet from my face filming me as I write this. The cameraman moving stealthily like a cat burglar, and he's dressed all in black to make the effect better still. The interviewer is a philosopher, Polish-born Flemish-Belgian, a continental philosopher, she says, though of course I had to ask what that was. Turns out I might be one too, albeit the accidental kind. Maybe I should say I'm a continental psychologist. Continental I like the sound of it. It's an alternative to accidental theologist. You can have your choice: accidental theologist or continental psychologist.
But why did you call your blog like that?
Why did I call it accidental theologist? I don't know. It just came up. There was a lot of pressure on me to start a blog, and accidental came up and theologist came up, and it
Well-
just felt right. Theologian basically is someone who's doing it from the inside. They're doing theology, right?
Yeah.
But a theologist is on the outside looking in. They're studying theology.
And is that how you see yourself, that you're at the outside? And
Always,
then,
always. I'm a writer and a psychologist. These are both professions in which you are outside looking in, trying to put yourself inside, trying to understand from the inside, but always with that perspective of the outsider. It's invaluable. It's so it's you know, it's an exercise in empathy. It's an exercise in understanding.
but there are so many aspects of the human being, but you have chosen to look deeper into religion. Why is that?
What surprises me is that I grew up, instead of saying a pox on both your houses, just walking away from the subject altogether, I sort of became more and more involved with it because it fascinates me. The whole issue of belief, why people believe, of the need to believe, the desire to believe, the passions involved in it, the magnificent irrationality of it. And I don't say this as a criticism. I think this kind of there is such a thing as creative irrationality. And this is wonderful. It can lead people to do wonderful things. If you're going to be rational about everything, right? You know, nobody would ever run into a burning house to save someone else, right? Nobody would ever dive into a river to save someone who's drowning. No parent would ever put the interest of their child before their own interest. And what amazes me is how many people who say that they are religious insist that they're being rational about it, find it insulting if I say that it's not rational, right? It's deeply emotional. Sometimes I'll come here and just sit and listen to the water, listen to the tide coming in, and think nothing.
And do you often have the need to think about nothing?
I don't think it's a need. I think I just do it quite easily, actually. It's just good to know that this is here and I can come out here. Or sometimes if a friend is going through a hard time, we'll come out here and just sit and talk or walk. Water is a good place to be when you have a hard time. The reminder that there's something much larger than you, like the ocean. It just puts everything in perspective.
Does it?
Yeah, I know some people feel cowed by the idea of the infinity, which actually I think is, probably an agnostic's sort of equivalent of God would be infinity, right? No beginning and no end. Beyond, totally beyond calculation or beyond understanding or comprehension, and yet we know that there is such a thing. We manipulate it. Mathematicians play with infinity all the time. I mean, that's the amazing thing about the human mind. We take something that is basically it's a construct. It's an imaginary. It's not a thing. And yet mathematicians play with it, and use it. So your cell phone, for instance, works on. Well, my cell phone does too, but they work on quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is it's like the opposite of infinity. Instead of the infinitely large, you have the infinitesimally small. And this is what they work on. They work on infinitesimally small possibilities. Like between 0 and 1, there's an infinite number of possible points. And it's just amazing that we can take something that we can grasp and yet not grasp. It is basically a poetic concept. It's abstract and yet it's real. that far larger sense of mystery, of the sheer wonder and awe and amazingness. The very fact that we're sitting here right now, that we're alive, that we're healthy. I mean, it's a gift. And maybe I appreciate it all the more because I never expected to live this long, right?
No?
I'm 71. I was always convinced, you know, when I was on ban the bomb marches in England as a student and so on, I always thought I'd be dead in the Third World War, the nuclear war, by the time I was 30, 40. So here I am, thanks to clean water and vaccinations and antibiotics, despite all my foolishness. It's exciting and amazing and something to be grateful for. As somebody once asked me, well, grateful to whom? I said, just grateful. Does it have to be to something or to someone? Can't we just experience gratefulness?
Like this moment.
Yeah. Yes. Like this moment, this beautiful. Did you ever play jacks when you were a kid?
If I what?
Did you play jacks when you were a kid?
No, I don't know what it is.
I don't know. You probably did, but it has a different name. In Poland or in Belgium. There were 10 small stones. And you'd bounce a ball, and as it bounced, you would toss them. Try to catch as many as you could.
Okay.
And then
Okay, I lost,
then you had to
definitely.
Catch them again. Religion infuses so much of our lives without us realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more so here in the United States.
And why is that?
It's founded by a bunch of Puritans. It's I mean, there's not a single presidential candidate who can wind up a speech without saying "God bless you" and "God bless America," right? It's there on the dollar bill. What's there on the dollar? Something's there on the dollar bill. Something about God on the dollar bill. In God we trust. Which is why one of the chapters in Agnostic is called In Doubt We Trust.
And what was the message that you wanted your readers to find in this book?
Part of it arises out of that ridiculous so-called debate between the new atheists and, you know, people who are religious, theists and atheists, basically. All of whom seem to see agnostics as somewhere in the middle, right? So like, you've got atheism on one side, theism on the other, and here in the middle is an iron fence with spikes, and agnostics are sitting right on the fence, right? This is an absurdly reductive way of thinking about all this. Just two-dimensional, either or, right? No grays, no, well, you know, this is black, this is white. Actually, what's between black and white? It isn't grays, it's color. It's all the color of life. The whole spectrum of life is in between those two. And no, gotta believe in God, disbelieve in God. Let's just get beyond this belief business, right? Because whatever it is that we're talking about is beyond human comprehension, which is surely the whole point. So why is everybody trying to pretend that they comprehend what we're talking about? It's, and even, you know, this whole thing of belief, people don't seem to be, what do you mean when you say that you believe in? I mean, nobody asks, do you believe that God exists? Do you believe in God? And I am not a believer. I do not believe in anything. And I've very, very rarely used the word believe, because what it is, it's really a way of saying think. Or trust, right? if I were to lend you $100, for instance, I believe that you will pay me back. What I'm actually saying is I trust that you will pay me back. I place my trust in you. I place my faith in you. Right? But basically, I have no idea. I hope you will. It's a matter of hope.
Yeah.
Trust, desire, faith, but actually not belief. So belief, it's a wishy-washy word. It doesn't really mean anything. What it does mean, however, is that you're not sure. Otherwise, you wouldn't need belief. You would know, right? But you don't know.
But why do people believe?
To believe in God, say, right? Which is such a strange phrase, you know. It is really just reducing, as I say, God is just, it's a three-letter metaphysical shorthand for, you know, whatever it is we think might be. You know.
Be.
And it's a way of objectifying it. Of course, God's got a will, and God's got lungs, the hand of God, right? If this is not a reduction of a grand metaphysical idea, I don't know what it is. All we're doing is bringing God down to human size. Which doesn't seem to me in fact, that seems to me totally heretical in religious terms, you know. Or you can look at it the other way. If you're bringing God down to human size, then you're bringing humans up to God size, and then it becomes egocentrism to the nth degree, right? I am carrying out God's will and so on, you know, the stuff that you hear from many religious people. Well, excuse me, isn't that heresy? Right? ISIS, Boko Haram, Taliban, carrying out God's will. Excuse me. That means you're God. You know God's will. You're acting for God. You are God. I mean, it's not religion, this is madness. Well, we know that. That I respect and even admire is poetry. The religious sense, the religious experience, it is poetic. If you have no sense of metaphor, then all you're stuck with is fundamentalism, right? No sense of poetry, no sense of something beyond the literal word, right? And this is what, you know, the bits that are best known of the Quran, for instance, are the so-called sword verses, which never even mention swords, but never mind. But they're verses, they're the ones that both the militant Islamists and the militant Islamophobes underline with, you know, yellow highlighter, you know, because they seem to call for war against the unbelievers and so on. And they totally ignore everything else that's in there. It's not about war and peace. That again is sort of bringing it down to a very, very small level and taking it horribly literally.
What is it then about?
It's all those great existential questions. What are we doing in this world? How come we came to be here in this world? Whatever is there out there more than us, and so on and so on. And these are questions that, you know, you can ask as a religious person, you can ask as a physicist, and physicists do ask them. I mean, if you read Einstein sometimes, you might just as well be reading William James and the varieties of religious experience. There are whole sentences that you could take from either man. It could have been written by either one. William James sentences that could have been written by Einstein, Einstein sentences that could have been written by William James. And it's, and that's exciting. I don't No, where someone comes from is a matter of their personality, a matter of their specialty and so on. If they come from religion, if they come from science, if they come from, I don't know what. But basically, if you have an open mind and an open heart, you're all going in the same direction. If you have a closed mind and a closed heart, then you'll start fighting each other like crazy. Hi.
How you doing?
Okay, thank you. So just go up one floor.
One floor? Yeah.
I love that sound. Bang, bang. Sometimes I have this fantasy that we'll take all the fundamentalists and we'll put them together in a huge island, an island that doesn't actually exist, so as we don't impose on anybody else. And we'll let them fight it. They can kill each other for all I care. Just do not kill the rest of us. Leave the rest of us in peace, because the rest of us can get on fine. Just leave us alone. Take your bloody fundamentalism and your awful literalism and your ghastly righteousness somewhere else, and leave the rest of us to be religious and human, or irreligious and human in any way we desire.
Do you have many unfulfilled dreams?
I'm fine. Yeah, if I'm healthy and still going, I'm sure I'll do lots more things. But, you know, if it ends right now, this minute, or tomorrow, that's fine.
Really?
It really is, yeah. It's been a great life. And I hope it will continue to be a great life. But I'm not pinning all my hopes on that, as it were. You know, it'll be nice. But, yeah. I've written a lot. I've done a lot. It's been great. And I want that party on the beach. After I die, I want all my friends to gather on that particular beach, make a huge bonfire, get totally drunk, eat lots of oysters and dance. Music of their choice. That'd be great.
So death doesn't scare you? And thinking
No,
about it.
and I understand that I'm rather odd there. And most people are scared of death. But sometimes I wonder if it's not life they're scared of rather than death, you know? 'Cause death is part of life. So, as long as I can live it, that's great. Well, when I can't, I'll stop.